Good afternoon, grade 10s. I just want to go over a few questions with you from the work that I assigned just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So looking at the first worksheet that I gave you, it's asking you to go from standard form into slope-intercept form. So remember that standard form is ax plus by plus c equals 0. So that's standard. And slope-intercept form, which is the one we used last unit in class a lot, is y equals mx plus b. And this is slope-intercept. So the questions on the worksheet are in standard form, and we need to convert them into slope-intercept form. So let's go over the first two questions on the worksheet together. So the first one is 3x plus 4y equals 8. So really what we want to do is get the y by itself, and we're going to do that by moving this 3x to the other side. So over here I have 4y equals negative 3x, because the signs change when I move it over, plus 8, because this is a positive 8. The last step that I have to go through to get the y by itself, I have to isolate this y. So what I need to do is divide by 4. But if I divide this side by 4, I have to divide everything over here by 4 as well. So on this side, I'm left with y. So 4y divided by 4 is y. I have negative 3 over 4x. And then 8 divided by 4 is 2, so plus 2. All right, so there's our answer in slope-intercept form. Let's do the next one on the page. So question 2 is 15x plus 8y equals 56. Again, for this one, I want to get it into slope-intercept form, so I have to get the y by itself. So I'm going to keep this 8y over here. I'm going to move the 15x to the other side. So positive 15x becomes negative 15x plus 56. Okay, so now to get the y by itself, again, I have to divide everything by 8 to get rid of this 8. So I'm left with y equals, now I have negative 15 over 8. I can't make that any smaller. I mean, I could, but then I would have a mixed fraction, so we're going to leave it like this. So negative 15 over 8x. And then I have 56 divided by 8, which is 7, so plus 7. And that's our answer. And I know that fraction looks really messy. That means that slope goes down by 15 over by 8, but we can't make it any smaller, so we're going to leave it at that. Okay, now one more thing. So question 8, and I think there are some other ones in there as well. What it's given you is y equals 2. That's done. That is your equation in slope-intercept form. So it's kind of like a trick question. It's done. You don't have to do anything to that one. Okay. Now the second work page that I gave you, I'm going to clear this. So I want to, so the first two questions, I think it is, ask you to do the exact same thing that we just did. You're rearranging from standard form into slope-intercept form. I want to look at, actually, because then you have to graph it. Okay, so let's do the first one actually. So I have 3x plus y minus 8 equals 0. If I rearrange this into slope-intercept form, I'm going to keep the y but move everything else to the other side. So I have y equals, this positive 3x is going to move over and become a negative 3x. And then this negative 8 is going to move over and become a positive 8. Okay, so now we have it in slope-intercept form. So then you're asked to graph it, so you have a blank graph there. So what this would look like, it's not great because I'm using my tablet here, but if we were to graph this, remember that this part of our equation is our slope, and this part of the equation is the y-intercept. So if I were to graph this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that means that my y-intercept is at positive 8. I'm going to do these down here too. I'm going to use a different color to graph it for you, okay? So if my y-intercept is at 8, that means it's crossing the y-axis at positive 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right here, where I'm drawing the yellow dot. And if I were to graph this slope, if the slope is negative 3, that means that this line goes down by 3 and over by 1. So the first point on this line, 1, 2, 3, and over by 1 right here. The next point from here down by 3, 1, 2, 3, over by 1. Okay, and we could keep going, but that's what that line looks like. So that's what you're asked to do in that question. In question 4, change colors over here for question 4. So for question 4, you're asked to identify the y-intercept, the slope, write the equation, and then put the equation in standard form. All right, let's see here. So for this one, we have to identify the y-intercept. So by looking at the graph, we can see that the line crosses the y-axis at positive 2. So that means our y-intercept is 2. Our slope, if we look from one dot on the slope to the next one, moving from left to right, like we do when we look at a graph, we can see that we go up by 1 and over by 4. So our slope is 1 over 4. Now the equation, when we write the equation of a line, if this is my y-intercept and this is my slope, that means this equation is y equals 1 over 4x plus 2, right? Because 1 over 4 is my slope, so I add the x to that, and then the y-intercept is positive 2. So that's our equation in slope-intercept form. Now I have to rearrange this to write it as standard form. So remember that in standard form, this is going to move over to the other side, this 1 over 4x. But remember that we can't have any fractions, so we need to get rid of this fraction. So in order to do that, I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. So when I multiply this side by 4, I have a 4y. When I multiply 1 over 4 by 4, I'm going to end up with 1. So that just eliminates that, and we have x. Okay? 4 times 2 is 8, so plus 8. Now I'm going to rearrange it, so I'm going to move the x and the 8 to the other side. So I have positive 4y minus x minus 8 equals 0. Remember that standard form is ax plus by plus c equals 0. Now the problem here is that I have a negative x. So that means my a is negative 1. And one of our rules was that a can't be equal to, can't be a negative number. It's always positive. So I'm going to rewrite this. I have negative x plus 4y minus 8 equals 0. So in order to get rid of that negative x, all I have to do is just divide everything by negative 1. So I'm really just going to flip all of the signs. So this negative x is just going to be x. This positive 4y is going to be a negative 4y. And this negative 8 is going to become a positive 8. So there is our standard form. Okay, so that's the next part of the question. So you've done identifying your y-intercept, identifying your slope, putting it into the equation of the line, which was y equals 1 over 4x plus 2, and then we've rearranged it into standard form. So those are all the parts of that question. The last one that I wanted to look at with you is one that I did have a question about earlier this week, and that's one of the word problems. So there's a couple of word problems there. We're just going to look at the last one. So that last word problem is a distance problem. I'm just going to pull it up in front of me. So it says Dwight is a race car driver. He knows the distance of an object travels can be found using this formula. So this is the formula for distance. So D equals VT plus 1 over 2 AT squared. So D is the distance traveled. So D equals distance. And we know that V represents the starting speed in meters. V is the starting speed. And that's in meters. So we'll put M in brackets. T represents the time interval. So T is time. And A represents the acceleration. Acceleration in meters per second. Meters per second. Okay, so those are all the different parts of that formula. I know that formula looks kind of scary, but we're just going to plug different parts from the question into this formula. So the rest of the question says, Dwight travels 53,000 meters by accelerating at 24 meters per second squared for 30 seconds from a fixed starting speed. So we want to figure out what is his starting speed. So what are we looking for here? We know the distance. So they told us that D equals 53,000. What else did they tell us in the question? They told us that we have a acceleration of 24 meters per second. So that means A equals 24. They've told us the time as well, so for 30 seconds. So T equals 30. So which of these variables do we not have? We don't have V. And that's what they've asked us, right? They've asked us, what is Dwight's starting speed? So really all we have to do is take these different parts and plug them into the formula and solve for our unknown, which is V. So let's change our color here and we'll do the question together. So starting with this formula here, so D is 53,000. So I have 53,000 equals V is our question mark, right? So V times time, which was 30. So V times 30 plus, this is right from the formula, 1 over 2. A is 24. T again, T comes up twice in the formula. T is 30. And then this is squared. Okay, so now we have to work through the question. We have to follow order of operations when we do a formula. So I'm going to rewrite this part here. 53,000 equals. I have to make sure that I do this exponent before I do the multiplication. Okay, so I have 30V plus 30 squared is 900. And 1 over 2 times 24 is 12. So I'm going to have 12 times 900. Okay, 53,000 equals 30V. And then 12 times 900 is 10,800. Okay, rearrange the formula. So I'm going to move this 10,800 to the other side. So 53,000 minus 10,800 equals 30V. So 53,000 minus 10,800 is 42,200. Yep. And that equals 30V. Now remember that when we are finding the variable, we have to isolate the variable. So to get 30 by itself, V by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 30. So 42,200 divided by 30 is going to be 1,406.7 equals V. Now remember that what did V represent? In the question it says that V represents the starting speed in meters per second. So that means our answer is 1,406.7 meters per second. So we have to write our therefore statement at the end. So therefore, the starting speed is 1,406.7 meters per second. All right, I hope that that is helpful for you. That should cover most of the questions that you had. And I'll be back next week with some more stuff for us to do. Okay, have a good long weekend. Take care.